Behind me is a graph of how many more points by percent did different drivers who've won at least 3 world championships score than their teammates. As you can see, Lewis Hamilton is at the absolute bottom of this list with 0.32. Compare this to Nelson Piquet, who scored 8 times more than his teammates, and Ayrton Senna, who scored 4.5 times more than his teammates, Fangio, who scored 4 times more than his teammates, and Michael Schumacher, who scored 2.5 times more than his teammates throughout his career. My point here is that Lewis Hamilton is not a top five driver. He just had lucked out to get an incredible car. The other guys driving it did just as good as him. They just scored a little bit less points. And if he was never in Formula One, then we'd be talking about Nico Rosberg, 7-time world champion. Now you might be saying, okay, Paul, well, Formula One seasons are long. Let's just take, the actual peak. Let's compare the peaks of different people. Fine. So these are the best 5 seasons in terms of the percent difference between drivers and their teammates. If you see here, Lewis Hamilton does a lot better. He's 80% more than his teammates in his best 5% seasons, but so is everyone else. Nelson Piquet is 15 times better than his teammates. Ayrton Senna, 8 times more. Fangio, 6 times more. Schumacher is 4.5 times more than his teammates in his 5 best percentage difference seasons. Right? So even if you look at the best 5 percentage difference seasons, you can say Lewis Hamilton is still not a top 5 driver. Okay, fine, Paul, but there were a lot of seasons, and this is a fair point, where you had one driver who scored like 22 points and another driver who scored 2 points. Let's just look at the best 5 seasons points wise, right? Like, what were their best 5 seasons of gaining points? And even if you look at this, Lewis Hamilton is still at the bottom of the group with only 37% more. Nelson Piquet again is 13 times more than his teammates. This guy was the master of winning in terrible cars. But Fangio's 4.5 times more, and Michael Schumacher is about 2 times more than his teammates. Max Verstappen is about 2.5 times more than his teammates, and Senna and Prost are about the same level. By the way, Senna and Prost raced against each other, so the fact that they're still putting up these insane numbers is incredible. Okay, one final objection. These are just looking at high scoring seasons, whatever. Let's just look at the championship winning seasons. How did they do in comparison to their teammates in the seasons when they won the championship? And even still, Lewis Hamilton is at the bottom of the list with only 40% more than his teammates. By the way, he won 4 championships with Valtteri Bottas, right? And he was only able to score 40% more points than Valtteri Bottas during his years. Ayrton Senna won 2 of his championships while racing against Alain Prost, and he still got a higher percentage more than Lewis Hamilton. He's about at around 50% more points than his teammates. Fangio is 350% more, so it's about 4.5 times as much as his teammates, and Nelson Piquet is 230% more, which is about 3.5x. And by the way, if you wanna make an argument about this being historical changes, right? That back then there was the car didn't mean as much as now, and it's unfair to compare eras. That still doesn't hold weight in any of these graphs, because look, Max Verstappen is on this graph. Sebastian Vettel's on this graph. Literally, the people who won championships before and after Lewis Hamilton both put up better numbers than him. Max Verstappen in this is about 2 times more points than his teammates during his wins, and Sebastian Vettel is about 54% more than his teammates in comparison to Lewis Hamilton, which in terms of numbers doesn't seem that big of a difference, but basically he scored 25% more points than his teammates. The point of all of this is that, I'm sorry, Lewis Hamilton is not a top 5 driver of all time. It's just ridiculous, people who think that he is. Just look at the numbers.